So, fun fact that just may, blow your mind. Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation was supposed to be the last Tomb Raider game. I know, right? Did you not see that one coming? It's not like in the title or anything, but it's absolutely true. That's how Core Design wanted to send the series off, but things didn't go quite as planned.
As far as I'm able to figure out, the reasons for Core Design continuing the series seem to be a mix of IDOS blatantly telling them to, and fan demand. People didn't want the series to end. People wanted to see more of Lara Croft. The series hadn't hit rock bottom yet. People wanted to see the series improve. People wanted to see more of Lara. It was a simple, standard reaction. I'm not sure why Core Design was surprised.
So, Core Design reacted by splitting into two teams. One team relegated to completing the next entry in the series, Tomb Raider Chronicles, while another team was working on the next generation Tomb Raider game, Tomb Raider: The Angel of Darkness, a far more ambitious title.
Tomb Raider Chronicles would be the next game released, the 5th game in the main series, as well as the follow-up to The Last Revelation. How? Well, it picks up where Last Revelation left off, but it's not about a new adventure Lara's going to be on. Instead, it's a group of her friends getting around and talking about older adventures, smaller stories that she's had in the past. In other words, this is a collection of several different incidents and several different plots in Lara's past that weren't included in the previous games. It's a really interesting concept, and I really like the idea. Having a bunch of smaller little stories actually work to the game's advantage, as the stories are pretty well written and actually quite interesting. There's a lot to like about Chronicles in that regard.
See, Tomb Raider Chronicles is actually a funny story with me. I couldn't actually get a copy of the game when I was young. For some reason, every single time I was in a video store, I could not find a copy anywhere. The only copies I was ever able to find were PC versions, and if I ever tried to play that game on my parents' PC back then, it probably would have made their computer explode.
But I gotta be honest here, there was another reason why I tended to avoid Chronicles. For one, back then, the game was slammed by critics. Not so bluntly so. There were a few people that liked it, but overall it was considered a lower quality game compared to the previous entries in the Tomb Raider series. Why? Well, there are a few reasons for that. For one, Tomb Raider Chronicles offered absolutely no evolution from the previous titles, and I mean absolutely none. It was literally the same game as before, and quite frankly, by this time, people were asking for something different. People wanted to see the series actually evolve from the tank-like controls of the past, and it just didn't happen. 5 games now, we've had to put it with the same controls, and while I do love the feeling of control that the games give you, the fact is, the first Tomb Raider game was what it was for the time. But by the 5th game in the series, you would expect some improvements, and in terms of the controls, there really wasn't anything there. There weren't even really any new moves added. You don't know what they added? The tightrope walk. Oh yeah, that just fixes everything. That's exactly what the franchise needed. In no way is this just a randomly tacked on new move. It doesn't really affect the core game mechanics at all, and doesn't even help to mask the fact that we've been playing the same game for several years. You know, all you people that like to act like pretentious assholes and act like you're more sophisticated gamers because you hate on the Call of Duty series because of its lack of evolution over the years, I tell you what, you want to see a lack of evolution? Look no further than Tomb Raider Chronicles. And I am being a little bit hard at the game because as someone who does appreciate the older Tomb Raider games, I find myself in playing this game and actually enjoying it. If you can get past the fact that it really isn't any different from the previous titles, there's a lot to like about it. I've already mentioned the story elements, and let me tell you, all the different story arcs in this game, which are all separate and completely different from each other, which is already awesome, are all really well written. Each story has something different to offer, and I really appreciate that. There's comedy, there's horror, there's drama, there's a lot of content here in terms of the plots. And, you know, while the gameplay isn't any different, you could almost call it an expansion on The Last Revelation. To any of you out there who were disappointed by the fact that The Last Revelation was only set in Egypt, well, here's the game only in several different environments. If you like The Last Revelation's mechanics and graphics, but weren't a fan of the setting, then I strongly suggest you play Chronicles because it's basically the same kind of game, only with multiple different settings. And none of them are deserts, so there you go. However, Chronicles did come with a lot of other problems that the older Tomb Raider games simply didn't have. For one, I've noticed Chronicles is a lot buggier than the older games. It's not broken, but it's not nearly as ironed out as previous titles. I find myself phasing through objects, or in some cases, blatantly not being able to grab ledges. Like, for example, with this part, I'm trying to get over here, and I think I can grab this container, but every time I try to do it, she just doesn't grab it. And yes, I am holding down the action button. I'm not sure whether I'm just barely out of reach of it or something, or if for some reason you simply cannot grab the edge of that particular container. You're actually supposed to jump on the container next to it, which, fine, but was there any reason not to program the other ones to be grabbable? You know, maybe I'm just not being able to reach it, maybe it's just me, but this isn't the only case where this kind of stuff happens. I found myself not being able to grab certain ledges before. I find myself grabbing ledges that simply aren't there, which is really weird, let me tell you. It's just a lot buggier than the previous games were. And by that I mean it's buggy in general, where the previous games had barely any glitches. In addition, the voice acting isn't what you'd call fantastic. It's funny, I guess, but it's not great. It's not the worst, but it's not great. It's just... I'm not even going to complain about voice acting, you know, just let it go. Also, and this might be a personal issue, and some of you, if you play it, may not even notice this crap, but this game doesn't necessarily ask me to suspend my disbelief so much as insult my intelligence. Particularly in the first story, where, I'm sorry, I don't fucking believe what's going on. Now, understand that Tomb Raider was always sort of grounded in realism. Yes, it had some supernatural elements, true. However, it was one of the first games to feel like you were playing as a real person. You only had one life, one misstep, and you were just dead. Simply put, you died. So, there was sort of a sense that you were in the real world, in a way. If you follow me? Okay. Let me set up this first level. Alright, so Lara's in Rome, like Italy, alright? You know, modern day, Rome, Italy, and she's trying to open this ancient tomb thing. I don't even know what it is. It's never really explained, I think. I don't know. If it was, I didn't catch it. Doesn't matter. Point is, she's trying to open this thing, which, for one, really, nobody figured out how to open this yet. You know, it's been thousands of years, you'd think someone would have opened it. But even if I could believe that, and I can, you know, alright, I'll buy that. I'll buy this door that no one's ever been able to figure out how to open. What I don't buy is the idea that nobody could open it even when the keys to the door are literally hidden in the streets surrounding the particular door. They're not scattered across the entire globe or anything. They're literally in the same neighborhood. Okay. I don't believe that for a fucking second, alright? For two, the keys are guarded by these ancient golems. One's just a head that fires lasers at you, and the other one's a literal golem. And these things guard these. In the middle of Rome, Italy. Really? This is a heavily populated city. You mean nobody's found this shit? You know, in one of them there's actually a modern day generator. Nobody was in here? Did modern day scientists hide this stuff? This doesn't make much sense to me. And then, well, it gets even better when you descend into the tomb, and then you come out in the Colosseum. Like, the actual Roman Colosseum. You know, one of the most heavily studied and excavated archaeological sites in the world! And they haven't found this room with a window out into the Colosseum yet. No. No. I don't believe that. Not for a second. And I know, it's a video game, but really, even the second story starts messing with me a bit. Because at the end of it, the Russian admiral, captain, I forget what his proper title is, you know, lets Lara escape through the escape pod, and Lara, you know, tells him, come on, let's go. She's going to take him with her, you know, to save his life too. And he says, no, go. Someone has to stay behind in order to release the escape pod, because it can only be released from the inside of the submarine. Now I want you to sit there and think about that, and then question why anyone, I don't care if they're Russian, would design an escape pod so that someone would have to stay behind and drown in order for it to be released. Does that not sound like a design flaw to you? Like, really? I would have bought that I just want to, you know, go down with my ship and my men. You know, that would have been all the explanation would need it. But they come up with the idea that, oh, he can't go anyway because it can only be released from the inside. That's just frickin' stupid. And I know, again, video game, I'm not gonna bitch too much. It doesn't kill the experience, certainly. It just sort of sucked me out of the stories just a little bit. But for the most part, everything else was really entertaining. And if you are a fan of the older games, I would recommend giving Chronicles a try. Yeah, it's a little bit buggier than the older ones, and yeah, by this point, we expected some more evolution in the series, but As sort of a filler game and as sort of an expansion of The Last Revelation, it's really not bad. Angel of Darkness, on the other hand, ugh.
Now here's the thing about Angel of Darkness, I'm actually not going to re-review the game. I'm not. Not at any great length anyway. Because I actually really like my original Angel of Darkness review. I know, that like never happens with me. Usually I'll review a game like that and have to re-review it later because I messed something up, but I actually think I did a competent job in my original review. I hit every point I needed to, and I adequately explained why this game was such a massive, massive disappointment. So I'm not gonna recover the game at any great length, and if you want a more detailed explanation as to why it sucks, I am going to link you to my original review. But I'm gonna use this opportunity to go over the game generally again, explain why it sucks in a nutshell, and clarify a few things that I don't think I touched on quite well enough in my initial review of the game.
First, I want to give some background on this game's development. Like I said, Core split into 2 teams in order to develop these games, and Angel of Darkness took a bit longer to make simply because it was being developed for the next generation consoles. Problems started to arise when the lead designer decided to basically dump all the work they had done and restart the whole damn thing about a year into development. Why? Because he had serious concerns that the PS2 wouldn't be able to handle what they were developing. He felt that nobody was taking into account the PS2's hardware limitations, and in the end, they were going to create a game that the console simply wouldn't be able to run. So, Core spent the next 2 years trying to rebuild the game from ground up. They were trying for a more dark storyline for some twisted reason, and they were trying to make a harder, more different toned Lara. They were trying to make the game just feel a lot more edgy, and in the end, they failed miserably. There's a lot of ambition here, and Tomb Raider: The Angel of Darkness was supposed to be a much better game overall in terms of the ideas that the team had, and I feel like there was a lot of talent here, but they just didn't have the means to accomplish what they were trying to do. The game was delayed several times, and they finally decided to release the game to coincide with the second Tomb Raider movie's release, The Cradle of Life. Unfortunately, the game was almost universally panned by critics, citing many flaws. At the end of the day, the game was simply unfinished, and it was a damn insult to the previous titles in the series, which were all, for the most part, outstanding. My issues with some of the titles seem minor when compared to literally everything about the Angel of Darkness. The game, overall, was awful. For one, this game insults my intelligence from the very start, when it contradicts literally everything established in the previous games. The opening cutscene has Lara talking with her mentor Werner von Croy, and she's doing her best to be an outright bitch to him for literally no reason at all.
Woman, Carvier, she can help.
I'm going. Eat it, Werner. You walked away and left me.
What?
Eat it, Werner. You walked away and left me.
Maybe I didn't hear you. Let me hear that one more time.
You walked away and left me.
No! He didn't!
You know, it was previously established in Tomb Raider Chronicles that Werner never, ever stopped looking for Lara after she was entombed in that temple. He was the one who dug her out. He was the one who didn't give up on her when everyone else had thought her dead. He was the one who saved her butt, and she has the nerve to sit there and accuse him of abandoning her when, from what's been established so far, he did the exact opposite of that. You know, maybe you want to argue retcon here, but I argue bullshit. And really, this whole thing with character conversations really pissed me off. I didn't really dwell into this too much, but it really is a constant problem. It just doesn't fit with the style of the game, and really doesn't add anything. It doesn't influence the game enough for it to matter, yet it's there often enough to be annoying. A impressive feat when you think about it.
Mademoiselle, I was a good friend of Werner's. I didn't kill him. I didn't.
He's a psychopath.
Why should I care?
Oh yeah, you were such a good friend, weren't you? One of the complaints I had in my review was over the button placement, and really, it is a constant problem. I had a few people argue with me about it, and I tell you what, I want you to imagine if, say, you were playing Mario, and for some twisted reason they swapped which button was jump and run. Now, would that or would that not be disorienting? I guarantee it would. Simply swapping buttons for no reason is what really gets me about this game. That's exactly what they did. They switched which button is jump and which button is roll. Square was always jump before, and circle was always roll. Yet in this game, they're switched where jump is circle, and square is roll. This is a problem, because if you've played Tomb Raider games before, that means when you first go to jump over a cliff, you're probably going to roll off the edge of that cliff, simply because you thought square was jump again. After all, the core game mechanics are pretty similar to the older games, there isn't that much different, and there seems to be no logical reason given, or thought of, I can't think of one, why they would switch these two buttons. They also switched which button is walk, which I also complained about, but at least in this case I know why. It's because they wanted to relegate R1 to shooting, which would be okay if action hadn't always done that, and really I can't think of any reason why they would ever change it, because there's no need to separate it. It's not like action does anything when you're shooting, so it's not like you need that button open for some twisted reason. You don't need to use R1 for this. And, you know, I guess it's not a huge deal, but it's still another change that didn't need to happen. Again, if you're not going to change the gameplay in any real way, don't switch which buttons do what. Also, I only really touched on this idea of Lara gaining strength by doing certain things so she can do other things. But this is by far the stupidest thing in the whole game. Like, and I mean that. Honestly, it just makes no sense. To walk you through this, sometimes Lara will try to do something, and she'll be like, I'm not strong enough yet. What the fuck does that even mean? Then you go do something else, just because you don't know what to do. And then she says, I feel stronger now. And now, magically, she can do that other thing. Okay, what? No, you don't pry open a door and magically be able to push a box, alright? Muscles don't work that way. I explained that in my initial review, but seriously, muscles don't work that way. That doesn't make sense. Just no. That's retarded. It's basically used as a way to get you to do things before you do other things. It doesn't really get used, you know, in terms of training Lara up or something. That's not how they use it. They use it as a way to force you to do things first, which is really frustrating in what's supposed to be a fairly open-ended game.
I'm not strong enough.
Okay, you know, I will buy that you can't push that giant block before you open a door. You know what? I'll suspend my disbelief. But don't tell me you can't open a fucking door!
You know, you Zelda and Mario fans are really fucking lucky, and let me tell you why. You know, everyone wonders why I get so freaking mad whenever I see a Zelda or a Mario fan complain about something like Wind Waker or Super Mario Sunshine for whatever reason, like, oh, they don't like Wind Waker's art style, ooh, that's the worst thing in the world, or they don't like that Mario Sunshine, you know, uses the water cannon thing, cause that just ruined the whole experience. I tell you what, you little assholes, alright, you're the most spoiled brats in the world because of that shit, and I tell you what, you bitch about little shit like that, you have never, ever had to watch a series that you grew up with, that you got emotionally invested in. You know, you never had to watch Zelda or Mario crash and burn in a almost spectacular fashion, ruining years of investment in a series in one solitary game. And in fact, I didn't have to do that once. I had to go through that shit twice. So you little shits can piss off.
The enemy AI is so bad. Oh, good lord. Look at this guy. He's just standing there. And it's not like this is the only case of this. Enemies do the weirdest shit in this game, often running the opposite direction of where you're facing. Impressive, no? Oh yeah, the conversations again. The point of them was so that you would be able to affect the flow of the game. Problem. There's only one time, literally one time, where the flow of conversations will be able to affect the game in any meaningful way. Other than that, they only affect character reactions. Really? That's awful. Like, why even have it as a function then? Why even have the choice? And I'll tell you what the most disappointing thing about this game was. Like, honestly, the most disappointing thing. It's Lara herself. She doesn't behave like the Lara Croft I had come to know. She is different and really mean, like all the time. And the point of the game is to make her, you know, more hard-edged or something, you know, darker or something. I'm not really sure. But in the end, she just comes off as mean, cruel, and nasty most of the time. And there's no reason for it. I'm not sure why they would bother changing this character in this way. She was perfectly respectable before, and she's just not the character I'd come to know.
You know, it's really frustrating to watch a series you grew up with just explode like this in what amounts to no time at all. And it's hard for me to just blame core design because I feel like their release was rushed and there may have been a lot of pressure on them and they tried to do a lot with the game and it just didn't come together. I don't know what happened, but in any case, Angel of Darkness almost eradicated the Tomb Raider franchise. It really spelled doom for the whole thing. I mean, it had been going downhill in most people's eyes at that point, but it really solidified the idea that Tomb Raider was old hat. Nobody wanted to play the games anymore, and nobody certainly wanted to go through Angel of Darkness again. Fortunately, someone at Eidos must have still had hope for the Tomb Raider franchise. They took away the rights for Core Design to develop the games, and gave them to Crystal Dynamics, and what Crystal Dynamics did with the series was take everything in a whole different direction. And this time, it was actually for the better. But I won't talk about that until the next part. So with that, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell. Hey Maggie, what I got? Look what I got. You want it? You want it? What's that? What's that? What is it? It's a toy. Go on. There you go. See, even the dog doesn't want to play with the damn thing.